welcome to a Genshin impact theory. So 4.2 is coming out soon. We have all been anticipating the conclusion of the Fontaine Archon quest. I have a theory regarding it. Like and subscribe if you want, and let's get into it. Theorists have been speculating who the real Hydro Archon is. Arlecchino said Furina doesn't seem like an Archon. Theorists have been thinking Neuvillette is the Hydro Archon. This can't be true since he's the Dragon Sovereign of Water. He's also said that he doesn't have the authority of the Archon, which is the Gnosis. And there has been some speculation that the oratrice is the real Hydro Archon, and I agree with that, in a way. I think Furina is the real Hydro Archon, but the oratrice has the Gnosis. That makes sense since Furina doesn't have the Gnosis, and the oratrice is some kind of godly machine. Now, the real mystery is what the oratrice is doing with all the indemnitium, and what's its plan that Furina is so confident about. We have all thought the oratrice is using the indemnitium to save Fontaine from being drowned in the primordial sea, since Furina said that. But I think I know what's going on. In many mythologies, the primordial sea, or the Sea of Chaos, or the Dark Sea, is an ocean at the bottom of the universe made of chaotic energy. Everything came from it. All the stuff in there just kind of mixes around until something pops out. But it's still a bunch of chaos, so anything that touches it will disintegrate. This myth is a part of Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, and is even mentioned in the Bible. In the book of Genesis, it's the way the world was before God made everything. In Sumeru Desert, there are a lot of references to Egyptian mythology. Deshret tried to use the power of the Abyss to fight Celestia, as well as being helped by the Dragon Sovereign of Dendro, Apep. This caused problems and started making everyone insane and caused withering and so forth. In Egyptian mythology, there is Apep, aka Apophis, who is the Serpent of Chaos and rules over the Sea of Chaos at the bottom of the universe, where everything came from. King Deshret is a reference to the sun god Ra. In mythology, he was actually trying to fight Apophis and Chaos, not work with them like Apep and Deshret did in Genshin, but artistic license, I suppose. Also, in the plans to use the Abyss against Celestia, Apep ate Deshret's body while his soul lived on, just like how Apophis eats the sun at the end of every day to bring about the night. So, the mythological counterpart to the Abyss in Genshin would be the Sea of Chaos, where everything came from. So that connects the Abyss to the Primordial Sea. Conria is based off of ancient Greece. They were a nation that was directly over and connected to the Abyss. In Greek mythology, there is also a Primordial Sea of Chaos, where everything came from. It lies beneath the underworld and even beneath Tartarus. So again, the mythological counterpart to the Abyss would be the Primordial Sea of Chaos, where everything came from. So it seems the Primordial Sea and the Abyss are interchangeable, or at least connected or similar. This is also supported by the fact that when Tartaglia fell into the Abyss, he saw the whale. Then we saw a cutscene in the 4.1 Archon quest where Tartaglia saw the same whale in the Primordial Sea. The Abyss and the Primordial Sea also both corrode or dissolve things. This also supports the idea that the Primordial Sea is a reference to the Primordial Sea in real-life mythologies. The Primordial Sea is also probably the Sea of Quanta, the ocean of chaotic possibilities at the bottom of the Hoyoverse's multiverse. That would make Irminsul, which is over it, like the imaginary tree that is the multiverse, with each leaf of the tree being the universe. All of this comes from Honkai Impact 3rd, another game made by Hoyoverse that explains their multiversal setup. Irminsul isn't the imaginary tree, it's a world tree for one of the imaginary tree's universes. The Primordial Sea isn't the entire Sea of Quanta, but a segment of it for that same specific universe. It's possible that each world/leaf in the multiverse has its own specific world tree and Primordial Sea that is on the imaginary tree and Sea of Quanta, but that's a topic for another time. One other thing that's worth noting is something that Ashokai said. She talked about how primordial seawater is linked to memories. This is due to the fact that when people are dissolved by the primordial seawater, their consciousnesses become an oceanid, and that oceanids can combine into a bigger oceanid hive mind. The primordial seawater also looks like the sanctifying essence item, and that is an item used to level up artifacts which are crystallized memories. So when someone touches primordial seawater, they would experience a lot of memories, and that would be too much for them to comprehend, and they would dissolve. There is also the fact that synth, a diluted form of primordial seawater, can make people have hallucinations. Synth would be smaller memories that wouldn't dissolve people, since it's not enough memories to make someone completely lose their mind and dissolve. Now, I think this is a part of it. The primordial sea is most likely the origin of everything, or all life as Nouvelette says. But it's possible that memories can get mixed into the primordial seawater when people's bodies dissolve. Memories are connected to Irminsul, and Irminsul is connected to the abyss, which is the primordial sea. So the memories go down there along with people's consciousnesses, since spirits and memories are connected in Genshin, and then they become oceanids. The primordial sea can't just be a sea of memories, because it was where all life and or things came from. It's primordial. It's the first. There would have had to have been beings that existed to have memories that would become the primordial sea. Also, how would the memories become the primordial sea if there's no way to make memories into primordial seawater without primordial seawater? Unless the memories came from the dragons who weren't made by the primordial sea, and that's why Nouvelette can control the primordial seawater. But that's probably not the case, since he can just control any water. It is probable that the dragons came from the primordial sea even though they ruled over ancient Teyvat. I think they came from, or also lived in, the Dark Sea before they retreated down there after the primordial one came. That's why the primordial bathysmal Vishaps have hydro powers. It might also be stated that they lived down there before they were banished down there, but I can't remember where. Another explanation would be that the primordial sea was made by Irminsul when a bunch of memories leaked out from its roots and went into the abyss. But this can't be right, since Irminsul only leaks memories when it's damaged. However, there's no proof for it having massive injuries unless they were harmed by the abyss. But there is no recorded event of that happening unless that is explained in 4.2. It would also have to leak memories from its roots to go into the abyss, because when we see Irminsul, it's not leaking from the main tree. And roots absorb things, not leak them out. Unless Irminsul couldn't absorb all the memories it was getting at once and had to suck up all the memories from a sea of it over time. But again, there has never been an indication of that happening unless, again, it's revealed in 4.2. There's also the fact that the primordial sea is the abyss, and the abyss probably came before or was there at the same time as Irminsul. So it couldn't have been made by Irminsul if it existed before that or at the same time as it. But time is weird in Genshin, but that possibility has to do with Irminsul, so it would have only gotten weird after Irminsul was made, so there's that. So I think the primordial sea is the abyss/sea of chaos, and memories and consciousnesses can be absorbed by it. If the primordial sea was a bunch of memories, it wouldn't be primordial, and it would be very different from its supposed real-world mythological counterpart. Since there are memories in there, that would explain the effects of synth. That was a long side tangent, but now back to the main theory. Now, there's something that bothers me about this. It's the fact that primordial seawater only dissolves people of Fontaine, which is weird since, in mythology, the primordial sea dissolves anything it touches, not even just life. I think I know what's going on. 500 years ago, there was an outburst of abyssal energy. Everyone knows that, and Celestia stopped it with the divine nails, and there hasn't been an outburst like that since. So the abyss or primordial sea's power is most likely dormant, and it's been awakened a little bit, and that's why only people of Fontaine can be dissolved. But why people of Fontaine specifically? What's so special about them? It probably has to do with the sin mentioned in the prophecy, which is most likely linked to the sin that the people of Conria committed. But what other connection is there? Then I realized. When there is a trial in Fontaine, people go to the opera epicles to see the trial, where the oratrice absorbs their indemnitium, which is their sense of justice, to make accurate judgments. That's the thing they have in common. Their indemnitium, or sense of justice, or maybe even memories, are being sucked up. So what if the oratrice is taking all the indemnitium and using it to awaken the primordial sea, not stop it? And since it's using the indemnitium from the people of Fontaine, the partially awakened power can only dissolve them. Or it's intentional that only the people of Fontaine can be dissolved. When I first saw the story trailer for Fontaine and it mentioned that the oratrice had a consciousness, I immediately thought of a rogue AI, and it does seem very mysterious and sinister during the Archon quest, and it probably has something to do with the prophecy, because it kind of fits narrative-wise. And if it does have some sort of plan, why be so secretive? Also, there is something that has bothered most people about the oratrice, including me. It's the verdict of Tartaglia. When I originally played the Archon quest, I thought Tartaglia was convicted due to his connection to the Abyss. He has awakened it, which is probably the same it that Dainsleif mentioned in the Chasm Archon quest. So maybe this it caused the primordial sea to awaken. Even if not, the oratrice might convict him since he's connected to the abyss, and primordial seawater was used for the missing women's case, so guilt by association or something. Or it's because the oratrice is a divine machine and would be opposed to the abyss, so it convicted Tartaglia. I don't think this is the case anymore. Another oddity was why Furina accused Linny earlier in the quest, as well as why her alter ego type thing was helping her there and then just disappeared for the other parts of the Archon quest. Furina used the fact that Linny and Lynette were Fatui as evidence, so maybe what she was trying to do was convict Linny and start arresting other Fatui in Fontaine, which would include Tartaglia. More on this in a second. But when Linny had a bunch of evidence for him not being the murderer, the oratrice decided to not convict him to avoid suspicion and just decided to convict Tartaglia outright. Because if the oratrice convicted Linny with no evidence, then Furina started getting Fatui arrested, that would be extremely suspicious. Now, why would the oratrice want to convict Tartaglia? It's to get him to the fortress of Meripede. The fortress of Meripede is over an opening to the primordial sea, and when Tartaglia goes there, he starts feeling something calling to him, and when he eventually swam, presumably into the primordial sea, the whale was there waiting for him. So what if Tartaglia needed to get close to the primordial sea in order to awaken its true power? That's why he needed to get sent down there. Now, why is the oratrice doing this, and what's going on with Furina? It has to do with the prophecy. The prophecy has been fulfilled in the past, before the oratrice was made with Remuria, but what if the prophecy was made as possibly a final warning to everyone to stop sinning, but they wouldn't listen? They would just keep on sinning and treating trials like a play. Then in this iteration of the prophecy, the oratrice would suck up their indemnitium to fuel their ultimate punishment at each trial. Now for the backstory of Furina and the oratrice. The oratrice was probably made by Egeria, the former Hydro Archon, or someone else we know of. See one of Ashkai's recent videos, I can't say which one because it'll spoil the whole thing. She probably made it when the Cataclysm started as a placeholder for her in case she died, or as a guide for Furina, who would be her successor since she wouldn't be around to do it herself. Then, the oratrice made the final judgment on humanity, and took charge of Furina and Fontaine, since it had the Gnosis, because it was powered by it. It probably was the thing that cursed Furina, as Arlecchino mentioned, and tricked her into believing that it had a plan to save Fontaine. It got her to parade Fontaine acting as a mascot for justice, to collect all the indemnitium, which it would supposedly use to save Fontaine. It would also tell her what to do by speaking to her through that alter ego of hers. The alter ego told her what to do during Linny's trial, but when she failed to convict him, it disappeared for the time being, presumably to take things into its own hands. This also explains Furina's personality. She acts all high and proud because she's supposed to act like that for the oratrice's plan, but gets all stressed when she is challenged in any other way than trials, because she's cursed and has been controlled by the oratrice for the past 500 years, which would only help her during trials. She continues to be all insecure after Linny's trial, since the voice of the oratrice has stopped speaking, so she has no idea what to do. She's also probably super scared when she's in danger, because she's traumatized by being controlled and belittled and cursed by the oratrice for so long. This is also why she is so sure when talking about working to save Fontaine. She is convinced that the oratrice will save Fontaine, but she doesn't even know what the plan is, so she couldn't share it. In her drip marketing, it states, "One lie follows another, and so justice awaits inexplicably at the end." The ignorant see this as some kind of farce, but if they trace back to the source, they inevitably realize they began by deceiving themselves. The plan is a lie. Furina is confident that the oratrice will save Fontaine, but the oratrice is actually planning to annihilate all of Fontaine to deliver quote-unquote justice. Because in Furina's drip marketing, justice is literally in quotes. The oratrice isn't giving up justice, it's dissolving everyone. This whole Archon quest, people have been saying that Furina is just some useless Archon who doesn't do anything. But that's not true at all. She has probably been trying to do something, but the oratrice has stopped her, telling her that it can save Fontaine if she just sticks to the plan. But the oratrice is the villain. It's probably connected to the whale, or is the whale, or has been a consciousness of the abyss trying to end everything this whole time. This whole plotline I've theorized about ties into the Summer Bottle Land event quest. In each summer event before a region is released, the plotline is a teaser for the Archon quest of the new region. In the first summer event, the story was about a group of people who fought against the shogunate and fled to the Golden Apple Archipelago, bringing with them a puppet, which was a Magu Kenki. Then, in the Inazuma Archon quest, we join a rebellion against the shogunate, and there was a puppet who fled from Inazuma, Scaramouche. In the second summer event, the Fatui were using a machine to absorb memories for some purpose, and in the Sumeru Archon quest, the Fatui made a machine that was absorbing memories to make Scaramouche god, who we then fought. In the most recent summer event before Fontaine, there is a Dia, an Oceanid who rules over a land, who is very insecure and who uses a machine to control it. Just like how Furina is an insecure Archon who uses the oratrice to rule over Fontaine. The machine collects memories of people and turns into water people, which would tie into the oratrice collecting indemnitium to awaken the primordial sea and dissolve everyone into water. And the machine malfunctions and flips the whole world upside down, which is like how Tevat is possibly upside down because the abyss is in the sky, even though it's Tevat's equivalent of space. But anyway, that would tie in to the oratrice being connected to the abyss because the abyss is connected to the world upside down, and it would also tie in to the fact that the oratrice is malfunctioning and decided to dissolve everyone in Fontaine into water. The oratrice being revealed to be the villain would also set up for the resolution of the Archon quest. At the end of each Archon quest, something fundamentally changes about the nation that would be getting rid of the problem. In Mondstadt, Dvalin was freed and people no longer had to worry about him and could live in peace with him. In Liyue, Zhongli retired/faked his death, and the people realized they could do things themselves and no longer needed his help. In Inazuma, A revoked the Vision Hunt Decree and eventually the Sakoku Decree, ended the war and stopped being so controlling over her people. In Sumeru, Nahida took over as the ruling Archon and the avatar of Irminsul. The corruption in the academia was stopped and stopped being so oppressive, the abyssal corruption was dispelled, the withering was mostly dispelled, and the forbidden knowledge was dispelled. Elazar was completely cured from everyone. The memory of Ruka Nevada was erased, which got rid of the abyssal energy that was connected to it, so Irminsul was cured. The people of the forest and the Eremites were brought together, and the Akasha was deactivated. So in Fontaine, the oratrice, the whale, and the primordial sea will be stopped. Furina will actually start ruling over Fontaine. People will stop treating trials like plays and start being serious about them, the law, and Furina. Nouvelet will probably regain his full dragonhood, and the oratrice will stop being used, or at least the consciousness in it will be silenced. So yeah, that's my speculation/theory/predictions for the finale of the Fontaine Archon quest. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys in the next video.